In 1492, Columbus made the first of 4 trips to the Caribbean on 3 Spanish ships named the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria.
Tell me about the Declaration of Independence.
In 1776, the Continental Congress published the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, announcing the colonists' intent to form a new nation.
Tell me about the War of 1812.
The War of 1812 gave confidence to the U.S. to spread the Monroe Doctrine, warning Europeans not to attempt to colonize the Americas.
Tell me about the 14th Amendment.
The 1868, the 14th Amendment made all former slaves U.S. citizens and paved the way for the Civil Rights Movement.
Tell me the Bill of Rights.
1. Freedom. 2. Own guns. 3. Quartering soldiers. 4. Warrants. 5. Not testify against all. 6. Right to a speedy trial. 7. Right to a jury. 8. Cruel and unusual punishment. 9. People's rights. 10. States' rights.
Back to your foundation students. Come on back to your parents.
So that was a demonstration of our Foundations program, and we have 2 students who will be demonstrating and reading a paper that they wrote this first semester, this year so far, on American history. And our first student is Priya Buck. She's 11 years old from Cambridge, Wisconsin, and is in the Sun Prairie community.
The mysterious shot that began a war. In a peaceful village in Lexington, John, who was a farmer, and his wife Sarah lived in a farmhouse. Massive mountains towered above the tiny village, and the lakes were like puddles scattered across a boundless meadow. It was the year 1775, and King George burdened the colonists with terribly unfair laws and endless taxes. Because he sent more and more of his grim-faced soldiers overseas, there was one redcoat in every corner in town. One dreary afternoon, as rain splashed across the mucky roads, John stormed into the cabin. "What is that selfish King George up to now?" he shouted. "There are tax laws on everything. When will the king stop? Those horrible redcoats are everywhere. We must store up arms to prepare ourselves." A few days later, there was news of the redcoats' plans to seize their store of ammunition. Softly, Sarah asked, "Will it come to war?" Sighing, John answered, "Hopefully not, but we must be prepared. I have joined the Minutemen, who are citizens willing to fight for our country." One cloudless night, as the moon shone bright and high above the silent village, John woke to the clattering of horses' hoofs. Seconds later, Paul Revere rode past shouting, "The British are coming." Quickly, John raced out the door, across the field, and joined 70 other Minutemen at a farmyard gate. As they waited, John looked around him. Everyone is extremely frightened. Looking ahead, he noticed a river of red winding its way up the road. 700 British soldiers in bright red coats confronted the farmers. "Disperse, ye rebels," ordered the British commander. No one moved. All was silent until one single shot, which was soon followed by more, rang out across the countryside. Soon 8 Minutemen fell lifeless to the ground. Solemnly, the British marched into combat. Along the way, more fighting began. It was after many fights and deaths that the British retreated back to Boston. Because of that shot, whether an accident or on purpose, began the long since remembered Revolutionary War.
Welcome. Representative Trainer. We also have a student from the Verona community. Her name is Tatiana Bobowitz. She's also 11 years old, and she's from Monroe, Wisconsin.
The hard journey to the New World. In 1620, John Holland walked softly and briskly onto the Mayflower with a group of Englishmen who wanted to worship God freely. They set off to America. As they sailed, a storm ahead caught their eyes. They knew there was no way out of it. They retreated below to the gun deck. Crash! The storm brought a glare of lightning, roaring thunder, howling wind, and icy waves. The men, soaking wet, shivered with fear. John, tired of being cooped up, climbed to the higher deck. Splash! John quickly drew his hand onto a hanging rope. As he dangled above the monstrous ocean, he yelled for help. Luckily, sailors spotted him and raced over to grab him with the boat. Goodman Holland rapidly climbed back onto the boat. He returned to the gun deck where his friends were glad to see him. They all knew it would be a hard journey to the New World.
It's my pleasure to now introduce to you the Challenge A students from the Sunbury community and their director, Mrs. Lena Bach.
I'm very proud to introduce 4 of my students from the Challenge A program. They will be reciting some portions of the American documents that we all know and love. The first person to be speaking will be Abby Lewis. She is 13 years old. She lives in Stoughton, Wisconsin, and she will be reciting the preamble. Next we'll have Finn Buck, who is 12 years old. He lives in Cambridge, Wisconsin, and he will be reciting excerpts from the Declaration of Independence. Next we'll have Ben LaRange, who is 14 years old. He lives in Deerfield, Wisconsin, and he'll be reciting the Gettysburg Address. And last of all, Anna Lewis, who is 14 years old and also lives in Stoughton, will be reciting the Americans' Creed. Thank you.
We, the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution to the United States of America.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them seems most likely to affect their safety and happiness. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought, to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is, and ought to be, totally dissolved. And as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may have right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come here to dedicate a portion of that field as the final resting place for those here who gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hollow this ground. The brave men, living and dead who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work, which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed. A democracy in a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. Thank you very much, Talent Ace.